Hello all and welcome, and I am the mgtowphilosopher, and in this video I'd like to talk about what goes into making content for YouTube. Now the reason I'd like to talk about this is because of the recent spate of mass demonetizations on YouTube, and some people objecting to content producers asking for donations from their subscribers. Now notice I said asking, not demanding. By the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with people asking for what are essentially tips. Tips for a service provided, especially when it's optional. Nope, I got no problem with that. Those people who do have a problem with that and say that there's something wrong with it are people who A, don't know what goes into making a successful channel in the first place, hence ascribe no value to YouTube content. B, have a warped ideology that tells them it's not only okay to produce something of value for nothing, but preferable. Or C, they're just cheapskates. Or they could be all the above. Regardless, a lot goes into making a successful YouTube channel. And I think I can safely speak about this without getting too much heat. After all, my channel has grown quickly and continues to do so, even with all the new censorship measures that have been put in place by Google of late. So I must know something. And I would like to speak about that something that I know because of all the haters and detractors who've been coming out of the woodwork lately, downing anyone who asks for tips from their viewers, trying to imply that it's just some kind of hobby and therefore isn't worth paying for. Now, first off, there's a lot of different kinds of content on YouTube. There's commentary, such as social or political, which is what I do the most of. And then there's original content, such as lectures on specific subjects that are within the genre of the channel, which I also do. Then you have various types of talk show genres, TV show clips, human interest type stuff such as animals doing various odd things, gaming channels, etc., etc. Needless to say, there's many different kinds of content on YouTube. However, formats within which that content is presented are limited, and I've got a good understanding of most of those formats. However, in this video I'm going to speak directly about my own channel and no others. Then you yourself, the listener, can draw parallels in regards to other channels and come to your own conclusions about the difficulty of producing quality content for YouTube. Now let's start off with the easiest form of content in my opinion, at least for me, and that is commentary pieces on various issues. Notice I didn't say easy, I simply said easiest. For me, this type of content doesn't require much, if any, scripting. Yes, I said scripting. Something many of you may or may not know is that for much of the content you're hearing on YouTube, there's also a script. Yes, that's right. Sorry to remove some of the mystery for you guys. Anyhow, for my commentary, I don't rely on scripts very often. I'm better off relying on my real-time reactions to what I'm commenting on. That's why most times I don't even read the entire piece I'm commenting on beforehand. And if it's a reply to another video, I don't even watch anything more than the first 30 seconds of what I'm replying to. You see, I want my reactions to be as real and visceral and as authentic as possible. Thankfully, I'm pretty good at interpreting and replying to things on the fly. That said, it isn't really all that easy. First off, I have to find the material to comment on, which can take some hours of research. Then I have to make the darn video, and I generally do that with zero editing. That's right, zero. The majority of the time, if I make a mistake, I just start over. That's it. And there's no editing involved. For anyone who knows anything about creating content, you'll know that that's not so easy to do. However articulate I may be, and whatever knack I may have for expressing myself with a clarity in the moment, easy it's not. Though I've spent a lifetime developing my speaking skills, working to become as articulate as I possibly could, no aspect of making good quality content is easy. Anyhow, once the content has been made, I may or may not be pleased with all of it. After all, speaking on the fly can sometimes lead to small errors of speech or transposed words, things of that nature. But you have to accept it. That's life. Next, the content has to be processed on my computer. That takes time. Then it has to be uploaded. That takes more time. Then it has to be tagged. A description has to be written. End of video links have to be placed in the last 20 seconds of the video to allow you to easily subscribe, donate, or watch another video from my library that might be of interest to you. All of these things take time. And all this writing of descriptions and tags and end scene annotations all come after the video has already been uploaded and then processed by YouTube, which takes even more time. For a short 15, 20-minute video, you could be looking at 2-3 hours of work, not including the research to find the subjects to comment on in the first place. Does this sound easy to anyone? No matter the skill someone might have that makes a task easier for them personally, generally speaking, it's not an easy process. And that's just in regards to my commentary pieces. We haven't even gotten into my original content pieces yet. Now, original content is any content I create that has no props, graphs, or commentary. No. It's a subject that I wish to expand upon to teach, enlighten, and open people's minds. These pieces generally, at least of late, get the least views, as I've already made original content pieces on those subjects that are most popular among MGTOW men. That said, I still must make these pieces to have my channel taken at least somewhat seriously. Now, the process for making this content is simple, but time-consuming. I simply sit down, think about what I want to say, where to begin, and just start writing. And believe it or not, this part is the easiest for me. I've always been a good writer, so easy peasy. It's what comes after that's a bigger pain. Editing. Yes. Anyone who knows anything about writing knows that writers, generally speaking, hate editing. We love to express ourselves, and then we leave the editing to the editors. That's right. As gifted as some writers are at writing, most tend to have so-so grammatical skills. I may be different in this regard, but the majority are not the most grammatically inclined. Thank God for editors. That said, I edit my own work. First, of course, I have to finish what I'm writing. And as easy as it is for me, because I'm good at it, because after decades of doing something it comes naturally to me, it still takes hours just to write a single piece. Then, once it's done, the editing begins, and must be done twice, just to make sure all the bugs are worked out. Then I have to record it with no mistakes, or very few. Then I have to save it, compile it, process it, and upload it to YouTube. Now, depending on the complexity of the subject I'm addressing, it can take anywhere from 10 to 12 hours to do one original content piece. Does that sound easy? Like something that requires no work? Is it e-begging to ask for a tip for effort that culminates in good quality content? Now, at the moment, those are the only two kinds of content I currently create. I'll be starting up a live stream soon. We'll see how long that lasts. I also explored doing a podcast, which I advertised the sale of on Patreon, but apparently not too many people wanted to actually pay for original content that they couldn't label as e-begging, which is really just a term some people use to minimize the legitimacy of someone's work so as to excuse any obligation they might feel to pay for it. As I said, it takes a lot of work to make content that people want to see, and even my commentary pieces can in total take many hours to make. As for my original content pieces, which are often comprised of many pages containing thousands upon thousands of words, well, they're more difficult by many multiples. Now, does any of this sound easy? Like sitting on the side of the road shaking a paper cup? Of course, much of this has to do with people being exposed to mostly bad or subpar content. When you have a medium that allows anyone, yes, anyone, to upload whatever content they want, regardless of its quality, well, it's hard not to see how some people can become jaded and mix up the good content with the bad and then judge them all by the same measuring stick. However, those of you who do that, you need to wake up. You see, there's a big difference between a channel with 100 subscribers and 10,000. And yes, the difference could be something like time. Length of time on YouTube, the timing of their joining, and the popularity of the subject matter involved. After all, if your channel is all about the mating habits of oysters, well, it isn't going to have that many subscribers, regardless of quality. That said, if two channels have been on YouTube about the same amount of time and one has 100,000 followers and the other has 150, you can be reasonably sure that the one with 100,000 has far better content than the guy who has 150 subscribers. This disparity, well, it means that the person with 100,000 followers takes their content seriously, more seriously than the guy with 150. And there's a reason you listen to them and not the guy with 150 subscribers. And if you listen and enjoy their content, then why not support them? That, of course, brings me to the other reason, which I alluded to earlier. Cheapness. Many a person just wants to minimize the quality and contribution of content producers' work by calling it nothing more than a hobby. Because if they brand it a hobby, well, that excuses them from having to take someone's work seriously enough to even consider giving a gratuity, which is essentially a thank you for a job well done. Because your work, well, it's just a hobby. And hobbies, well, they're not worth a gratuity. They're just you begging. The truth of the matter is there are varying levels of content quality on YouTube. And what separates the channel with 100 followers from the channel with 10,000 is a difference in quality of content. That's it. And if someone produces quality content and asks people to contribute something, anything, then don't give me some BS about it being e-begging to try and shame someone into not asking. If you don't want to donate, then don't. But don't be a troll and attack someone for asking for support for their hard work. And yes, some people want to label it as something other than hard work, because hard work deserves to be rewarded, while hobbies in most people's minds do not. And by the way, I don't mind if someone doesn't want to contribute. It is, after all, a gratuity. You valuing my content and weighing it against whether or not you can afford to contribute. If you can't afford to, that's fine. If you don't want to, that's also fine. I'm not going to press you. After all, asking generally is not the same as asking specifically. If you don't want to give, no one's going to specifically call you out, let alone force you to. However, do not call what I'm doing e-begging. From what I said about how I produce content and the amount of time it takes, does that sound like nothing, which is what a beggar would give you in return for your money? Does doing a job that takes hours, sometimes 10 or more hours, and then asking others to evaluate your work and pay accordingly sound like begging? Does anyone really equate that with begging? Really? Also, asking people to contribute, that's not so easy to do. Putting yourself out there and asking people who have in no way contracted you to do a job, and then asking them to still give you money for your work, I mean, does that sound easy to you? One has to put pride and ego aside to do such a thing. To equate this and the creating of something that is objectively measurable to be both substantive and of good quality, to equate that to some homeless bum lying on the sidewalk shaking a paper cup is insulting in the extreme. I see no parallels between the two whatsoever. By such faulty reasoning, one could call someone a beggar just because they go to their boss to ask for their weekly paycheck, if the act of asking for something is the only criteria you have to label something as begging. That's about the laziest thinking I've ever seen. So lazy that it's hard to believe anyone could be so stupid as to draw such conclusions. That beggar you see sometimes, sitting or lying on the sidewalk, he does no work. Once you drop a coin or a bill in his cup, it'll serve no productive purpose. He will use it to produce nothing. It will motivate him to do nothing. Save maybe going down to the local liquor store and buying a cheap bottle of Thunderbird. Hence, it actually did serve a purpose, but of a negative sort. It made this poor bastard's life worse. Now let's compare that scenario to the scenario of someone like myself. A productive member of society who produces something of value, something you like, something you listen to, something you enjoy and value. You donate to me, which really means paying me for my work because you found it useful, enjoyable, and your conscience told you that you should reimburse me for that. Because the only part of that is a donation is the word donation. Because in truth, it's you subjectively deciding that my work had value. My work. Beggars don't do any work, generally speaking. And if they do, then it's not begging. Unless you're talking about those bums who run up to people's cars at stoplights and attempt to squeegee people's windows when those people didn't ask for such to be done in the first place, and then they expect you to give them money in return. Now that's begging. Begging by coercion. No one asked them to clean those windshields, and they are literally trying to hold people hostage at those lights. I, on the other hand, do no such thing. I force no one to listen to my videos, and I demand nothing from them in return. I only ask that they contribute something to my efforts if they can afford to do so, and if they find my services of value. Actual services, I might add. Not some bum shaking a paper cup or wiping down some stranger's windshield with a dirty newspaper when they weren't even asked to do so. Again, trying to equate someone's hard, productive work that people value and are willing to pay for with some bum shaking a cup or using a quick wipe of your windshield as a pretext to demand money from you is a highly inaccurate, intellectually lazy, dishonest, and just plain insulting comparison. In truth, there's no difference between myself and someone who's working 9 to 5 creating video or audio content for a paycheck, except for the fact that that person has negotiated a contract beforehand between themselves and their employer. That's the only difference. I produce my content, but instead of getting a guaranteed paycheck from an employer who contracted with me to produce that content for an agreed upon fee, I come directly to you, my listener, and ask you to contribute something if you find my content enjoyable and informative. And if you can't afford to, then don't. However, the fact that I'm creating something and wanting to be compensated is no different. The only differences lie in the fact that there's no contractual obligation between myself and the person who decides to give me a gratuity. Only an implied understanding in that if they like my content and can afford to pay for it, that they do. It's almost like an honor system in that sense. I offer a service to all for free, with just one caveat. If you can afford to pay something and you enjoy my content, then let your conscience be your guide. That doesn't sound anything like a beggar to me. It sounds like a man producing a product and then asking people to pay whatever they can, whatever they think is fair. Heck, it sounds like a nice guy to me, a trusting guy, a guy who's providing something of value and not demanding anything of people except that they be honorable and support my channel and the channels of others if they use those people's product and are financially able to do so. So don't anyone give me this e-beggar nonsense. That's nothing more than some of you out there who deep down feel badly about not contributing when you could, so you want to lay that firmly at my doorstep instead of where it belongs, firmly on your own. Yes, much, if not most of the content out there is of poor quality, akin to some bum wiping down your windshield as a pretext, a gimmick, so as to make it look like they've done something productive so that you'll be more inclined to give them something for their rather meager efforts. I don't deny that. But that's not my channel, and that's certainly not all channels. So don't brand myself and some others who create good content as e-beggars. We're kind men producing a high-quality product, comparatively speaking, and all we're asking is that those listening go by the honor system and pay for the service if they are so inclined. And we're not even asking a lot. Not even what you would tip a waitress for providing you with good service. And in the end, asking for a gratuity when you've done something of value for someone else is not the act of a beggar. Not even close. I am the mgtowphilosopher. Please like, subscribe, and tip me via Patreon if you are so able and inclined to do so. You'll find the link at the end of this video as well as in my video's description. I wish you well and take care.